Ole Miss and the SEC are set to leave the NCAA if this doesn't happen.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Ole Miss Podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast around. I am your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member. On today's show, we talked to Brad Logan of Logan Media Group about the major news from yesterday. The SEC presidents have officially given the green light to leave the NCAA if necessary. The move could be a huge win for Ole Miss football, especially as the program continues to rise. It is safe to say that Ole Miss is hitting their stride at the perfect time right now. We then dive into baseball, where Ole Miss is now set to host a regional in Oxford after an improbable SEC tournament run. And to cap it off, the Ole Miss softball team has punched their ticket to the Women's College World Series in Oklahoma City to face Texas Tech on Thursday night. From football to baseball to softball, Ole Miss is really cooking right now. Remember, we're free and available in all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make this show what it is. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Chris Gordy at Locked On SEC or Corey Burton at Locked On Vandy offer even more perspectives on college football, the SEC, and yes, even all things Ole Miss. We were going to do a story and a little talk about freshmen coming into Ole Miss over in the summer, the Caleb Cunningham getting there, the Shakai Mills Knight getting there. And then it broke out that the talk about the playoff is getting kind of serious. The Big Ten last week approved the playoff as we imagined it. The SEC is about to do the same. Potentially, you're going to have 4 automatic qualifiers for the Big Ten and the SEC, all of that. Other conferences are very pissed off about it, and they're going to try and challenge it wherever they can, which may eventually lead to the SEC and the Big Ten leaving to do their own thing, which they kind of want to do anyway. The rumor about all of this is continue to ask as many ridiculous things as you can so that they eventually say no, so you can throw your hands up and say, hey, we tried, and then go do your own thing anyway. The Big Ten and the SEC are destined to be together. It's just a matter of whether or not the Big 12 and the ACC wants to be a part of it. If they don't, they don't. If they do, they do. But I am saying this is a big win for Ole Miss athletics if this goes through. We talked to Brad Logan from Logan Media Group all about it, and the softball team and the baseball team. Stick around. Here we go. Great friend of the program, Brad Logan, joins the show. Brad, how you doing, buddy? You had a pretty good day yesterday with the women punching their ticket to the College World Series and the men making a host happen over after a run in Hoover. That was pretty cool. You're probably doing pretty well, man.
Yeah, and then, boy, it's great to see you. I'm so glad that you're feeling better. Obviously, we've stayed in contact during your spell, if you will, and I'm glad that you're doing so much better after getting all that stuff behind you. Secondly, coming to you on Memorial Day, I want to thank all the men and women that put their life on the line and they paid the ultimate sacrifice. And it's because of you that Steven and I can do the show today, and we're so incredibly grateful for that. It was a great day for Ole Miss yesterday, and you look at where the programs are, both the men and the women. Both have had their trials and tribulations, specifically early on. My Bianco, a couple of years following that national championship, has not gone well, but he knew that coming into the season, and he knew he had to have a big year, and he has. And then Jamie Tractual, another coach that followed Mike Smith and then kind of had some ups and downs. But congratulations, Ole Miss is headed to the College World Series, the Women's College World Series for the first time in program history. Just a testament to how hard that program works. And also, what about Keith Carter? And I know we'll get into football in just a minute, but what does this say about him, that he stuck with Mike Bianco, that he hires Jamie Tractual, sticks with her during some difficult times, and now all of a sudden she's headed to the Women's College World Series. So I think this yet another feather in the hat for Keith Carter, who continues to be just landing on gold. And in every decision he's made has had the university and the fans and the administration at the forefront of that, and it continues to pave the way for Ole Miss athletics.
And Sunday was a great day for Ole Miss, but unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, it's not the news story this Monday morning. There's an article by Ross Dellinger talking about the new college football playoff model, how the Big 12 and the ACC is preparing to go to war over it, questioning the validity of the memorandum that they signed, that they gave the power to the SEC, the Big 10. And at the end of the day, the separation is going to happen. Now, I think this is a good thing for Ole Miss, Brad. I think Ole Miss desperately needs this to go through, because the idea that they have set up for playoff and the access to the playoff, that benefits, quote, not as expensive, not as wealthy schools like Ole Miss, like Arkansas. You have a chance to get in the conversation. I think this is ultimately a very good thing for Ole Miss fans and for the SEC and the Big 10, if not the ACC and the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, so let's look at this thing from a whole. Maybe even 6 months to a year ago, I felt like we would have 4 super conferences that would peel away. And now all of a sudden, it sounds like Ross is intimating that the SEC and the Big 10 could pull away and be autonomous and create their own conference. And so now we're all of a sudden, it's the haves and the have-nots, I believe one way that Ross put it. And there was I don't remember what the conference was, that it was a non-power 10, a Big 10 and SEC commissioner that said that we're going to fight this. Well, I've got news for that particular conference. You're probably going to lose, because the money is going to control everything. And right now the money is in the hands of the SEC, the Big 10, and maybe we might argue Notre Dame and a handful of ACC schools, maybe a handful of Big 12 schools. The Big 12 is the only conference that has any really good, possibly skin in the game. And even then, I don't know that they could even remotely compete with the SEC and the Big 10. The ACC seems to be falling apart. The Big 12's hanging on by a thread. And then you got the SEC and the Big 10. I don't know that you want to fight these two. I think if your other conferences, similar to what Ross was saying, you want to try to find some type of mediating ground to see if you can be a part of whatever's coming. But I think if you're a part of those other conferences, whether it be the now defunct Pac-12 or the small Pac, whatever, if you're a part of any of those conferences, ACC, Big 12, Mountain West, or whatever, you have got to come to the table and say, we want a piece of the pie. We will listen. We will do more listening than talking, okay? Because we want to be a part of that.
Yeah, and probably the nugget that happened in Ross's story was the fact that back in March, all of the SEC presidents gave Greg Sankey permission, basically approved him, if it gets to where he feels it's necessary to leave the NCAA, he can leave the NCAA. This is seriously a breakaway discussion at this point, I think. And if the breakaway happens, the big schools in the Big 12 and the big schools in the ACC, they're gone. They're going to get sucked up by the ACC and SEC. And we are in the super conference era. We're getting ready to cross that Rubicon.
Okay, I have a question for you. Are there any programs in the Big 10 or the SEC that will not be a part of this?
No, not to my knowledge. The Big 12 and the ACC hope that. They're like, oh, Vanderbilt's going to go. No, Vanderbilt's not going anywhere. The SEC still needs Vanderbilt servers to be a private school. That's a Freedom of Information Act shield. Vandy is going nowhere. Mississippi State's going nowhere. Ole Miss is going nowhere. What they have is a perfection of two conferences that can go back and forth together. They're going to add to it. I think the ultimate number is going to be 40, but no, they're not going to get rid of anything. They're going to make access to, like they have set up with the play-in games, to where 6 teams out of 16 in the SEC on conference championship Saturday are going to be in the playoff discussion. And I literally think this is a win-win for Ole Miss.
From the media rights standpoint, I'd be fascinated to see. Obviously, ESPN and ABC Disney has the SEC locked up with the SEC network. But if a lot of the Big Ten properties are with Fox, and so, well, I say a lot, the Big Ten network is produced by Fox Studios and that sort of thing. So I would be curious to see if the two conferences somehow did go together, how that kind of plays out. Whether Fox and ESPN, Disney come to the table and discuss how they're going to air the games and that sort of thing. It almost feels like that if SEC and Big Ten go together, that the other conferences become the old NCAA, Division II 1AA.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Division I, then you got Division I AA. I don't know that it would be that type of construct or whatever, but it definitely is interesting to see where ESPN or Fox or NBC or any of the streaming services come into non-SEC Big 12 teams, because I think there will be a value for those teams to be broadcasted, and there will be a value for a UCLA versus Arizona State at 9:00 or a Florida State versus Clemson. What happens to the powerhouse programs like Clemson? Steven, I mean, that's a program at Dabo Swinney that is synonymous for winning. Florida State has had kind of some down years, but then you've got Nebraska. What happens with all these teams? Do you form a conference of your own and try to come to the table?
Well, Nebraska's in the Big Ten. I know they
That's
they
right.
haven't won any. They haven't won anything
other-
in 10 years, but
I'm talking about other
they're-
Big 12 programs that have been really good. Do you combine with the ACC and then come to the table?
I think Texas Tech right now, if you see what's happening in their NIL space, they're trying to get the SEC or the Big Ten's attention. I don't think they would ever get into the Big Ten, but they're trying to get the SEC's attention, because the Big 12 schools, whether you say it, you might say publicly that you're against this. If you are a team in the Big 12 or the ACC, you are secretly fighting to get into the Southeastern Conference of the Big Ten. If you're not, you're going to get left behind. You're going to basically surrender football for the foreseeable future.
But look, this is not about competition. This is not about one conference wanting something over the other. This is not any type of dictatorship or any type of commission or jockeying. This is about one thing. This is about money. And you've got to have money to get players, and you got to have players to win. And you got to have money to have a really good coaching staff, and you got to have money for facilities, and you have to have money to travel all over the place. You have to have money to do all of this, and that's exactly what all this is about. Now, there are other reasons behind all this, and I get all that. And there are ways to where you want to be able to play certain teams and not allow other teams in. But this is ultimately about a money play, and then we'll see where it goes. But if you completely disband from the NCAA, we truly have a minor league system for the NFL. We already have that anyway. We will absolutely we will see the NFL and whatever this conference/merger would take place would come together at that point, and you would have a true enough minor league system.
All right, when we come back, we will talk to Brad all about Ole Miss hosting in baseball. Big year for Mike Bianco, so stick around. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all of my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track of that. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. It's not just a budgeting app, Monarch Money. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investment, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building true wealth. When I started using Monarch Money, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save a little bit more. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Ole Miss, a host destination in college baseball. Brad, whenever we had a show on Monday or Tuesday, it was like, hey, can you get into the discussion of hosting? By the end, they were having the discussion, can you get into the discussion for national seed? It's a remarkable run that the Ole Miss Rebels baseball team had in Hoover, Alabama. I'm just impressed with the way the pitching staff looked. They didn't hit the ball particularly well, but they hit the ball well enough to win every game but one. And the one game they lost by 1 run. So I think they have a good strategy. If you can get through the regionals and into the out of the super regionals and get to Omaha, I think Ole Miss is built to handle a big part like TD Ameritrade with the way they play baseball.
Yeah, I mean, when they win games this year, they in many ways live by the long ball, and they've done a really good job of hitting the ball out of the park, and that's what allowed them to do so well over in Hoover. What was exciting to me is that Hoover mattered, Steven. I mean, in many years, in large part, a lot of the teams go over and kind of lay an egg and get ready for the regional, and even in your programs like Vanderbilt that didn't need to win in as a number one seed, came out and we're really excited about winning the tournament. I'm just excited the tournament means something. And it absolutely meant something because it allowed Ole Miss to be a host. Ole Miss was not going to be a host leading into the tournament. But when you beat LSU, Arkansas, and Florida, and then play Vanderbilt to the Brink, who's the RPI number one, it's probably going to be the overall number one seed when everything is released at noon today. I think that's going to show just how good this Ole Miss team is. When you look at their RPI, their strength of schedule, had they beaten Vanderbilt, I don't know they reached that national seed, but they would have been right there. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to come in at a 13 or 14. I don't know, maybe even was last night showing they were 14, 15, whatever. It doesn't matter. I mean, I think they've got a great opportunity matched up against the Texas Tech regional. So this gives Ole Miss an opportunity. Not Texas Tech, I'm sorry. I'm thinking, you'll have to excuse me. I'm not used to talking about softball and baseball the same. I'm not sure who they match up against. I do know Ole Miss women, and we'll get to them in a moment, play Texas Tech in the Women's College World Series. But Mike Bianco, you talk about winning that national championship in 22, having the 2 down years, and then all of a sudden coming back and fighting back hard. And I think I posted this, and I really believe this. I really believe that Joel Mangrum could be the MVP of this team. I thought the pitching staff pitched as well as they needed to pitch to win, and they got quality starts. And I think they found themselves a diamond in the rough in Cade Townsend. And Mike Bianco said on the SEC Network that Cade Townsend has been groomed for that Friday night start for next year, and I think he earned that spot. Walter Hooks, without giving up the bomb to Vanderbilt, I think Walter Hooks pitched incredibly well on Championship Sunday for Ole Miss. So he's another arm that Ole Miss has that it can lean upon down the stretch. But the first 2 games, the first 2 wins, you can't really say enough about how Hunter Elliott cranked it off, and Luke Hill, and he's such a great story with the whole internet thing about LSU, and then being the heel, and then turning all of a sudden now he's the face of this team, and it's really cool to be able to see that, but to see just how hard this team fought and fought for each other. And I love what Will Furness says is he says we're a team. And this team plays hard, and this team is special. It's different than the other 2 teams that he's played on. So it's absolutely been fun to watch especially down the stretch for this team.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Players like Isaac Humphrey. Honestly, if Isaac Humphrey doesn't hit Ryan Moorman, there's probably a chance Ole Miss is the SEC champion right now.
Well, it was unfortunate.
Yeah.
Hit. It was
that's the worst one in the outfield I've ever seen. I
mean, I don't know that I've ever seen a collision in the outfield that's any worse than that. And you hope that all of them are ready to go for regional play. And it made the circles on ESPN, and it was a tough lick in the outfield. And that's the thing about it. Mike Bianco's even made the point that the transfers that have come in, specifically the outfield transfers, and Isaac Humphrey and Moorman and Sanford and those guys have really stepped up to the plate and been huge leaders on this team. Not many instances. You talk about Liam Doyle and Fisher that went off to Tennessee. Great players, but didn't really gel with that locker room quite as well as folks would have liked. That's not the case with the transfers this year for Ole Miss. They've gelled very well, and they've absolutely been huge leaders in the locker room. And this team has an opportunity to play regional baseball in Oxford is different, Steven. And being able to get that back for the first time since – I know they haven't had a super regional since 2008. I don't know how long it's been. Was it 19? They had a regional in Oxford?
19, yes. Yeah. Was that the Tennessee Tech? Was that the Tennessee Tech series?
Honestly, man, I don't remember. It all runs together. Yeah. I just know it's been a couple of years. And so having the fans an opportunity to open Swayze, and that's kind of been the mantra for all the social channels is welcome back. And I think Ole Miss fans will come out in droves for the super regional the upcoming weekend. And I'm excited to see who the teams will be. And there's been some projections by D1 Baseball, but until noon comes, I'm excited to see who's coming. And we'll learn that at noon today.
Yeah, just so everybody knows, this is before the teams get released in the selection show, talking to Brad. When we come back, we will talk about the ladies. The Ole Miss softball team books their ticket to Oklahoma City and the Women's College World Series, so stick around for that. Ole Miss is in the midst, Brad, of their best athletic year in their entire history. The only team that you look at their major rosters that underachieved this season was probably football, and they won 10 games. Ole Miss, this is the best time potentially to be an Ole Miss fan.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see, being a down year when you win 10 football games. I mean, not in the history of Ole Miss when Ole Miss historically has not, averages what, 7, 8 wins over the history of the program, maybe 6, depending on what season you're looking at. But what they were able to do, I think, as an athletic department, I think it's a testament to Keith Carter. And we talked about Keith Carter a lot earlier about what the staff that he's put together. And I think when you look at the entirety of the program and you look at the entirety of what the men's programs and the women's programs are doing, let's talk for the women just for a moment. Women's basketball made a heck of a run in the NCAA tournament, and then softball is going to the Women's College World Series. Obviously, those two things have never happened before because it's the first time the softball program has been to the College World Series. And then on the men's side, you've got men's golf is still participating in the national championship. The only program that has struggled, including all Olympic sports, has been women's tennis. And there has been – or men's tennis, and there's been a change in leadership there. So every other program on campus is either breaking glass ceilings or just killing the competition. And so that's a testament, I think, to Keith Carter and just being able to see what men's basketball is doing, recruiting now in the portal, made a run the NCAA tournament, had some big wins in the SEC tournament, football, baseball, softball, women's basketball. Volleyball, it broke a couple of glass ceilings this year as well by doing a lot of great things. So you could just go down the line right now, and it's really, really fascinating to watch.
Yeah, it's just so interesting. And you talk about the softball team, their first ever trip to Oklahoma City. Now you have to beat the home team because Norman, Oklahoma, I think is about 20 miles away from Oklahoma City. So Oklahoma is going to be the de facto home team in those games. But Ole Miss gets Texas Tech, I think, Thursday night at 6 o'clock Central Time. And Texas Tech has one of the better pitchers, apparently, in the entire country that you're going to have to overcome. It seems like it's going to be a fairly low-scoring game, but it should be interesting to see. This is a scrappy bunch. I enjoyed how hard the ladies played against Arkansas, and I enjoyed their clutchness, if that was. And Leah Benford, I think that's her name.
Yeah.
She's really, really good.
She is. And, closed down Arkansas. And, in fact, if you'll remember, Steven, and the folks watching, Arkansas had the meat of the order up down 7-4. Now, it was 6-4, but a huge home run by Lexi Brady, who 340 on the year, has had a really good year. So, up 7-4. And the thing about it is Ole Miss had an opportunity. Like I said, you talk about Benford facing 2, 3, and 4 and shut them all down. And it's been a big year. Jaden Prone, 363. And you look across that lineup, almost every starter on this team bats over 300. And that's just a testament to the hitting. And Jamie Tractual, this team was picked 14th out of 15 teams in the preseason coaches poll. And they're headed to the Women's College World Series. That's just how incredible a job Jamie Tractual has done. She's been to the College World Series before when she was at Minnesota. And, came into a situation to where a lot of fans were upset that Mike Smith had been let go. And a couple of major players left the program when Mike Smith was removed. But all of a sudden now, Jamie Tractual gets her team together, and you've got a team that's playing as good as any team in the country. Now, like you said, the draw is not great. You do get Texas Tech, who's one of the preeminent programs in the softball, in the NCAA softball now, and you get their number one pitcher. But I think that just says a lot about how this team has played. Leah Benford, 328 at the plate too, Steven. Hits it really well. And it's just a fun team to watch. They pitch it well, but when you've got that many players hitting over 300, so much timely hitting for this Ole Miss softball team, that's a recipe for success.
Yeah, and one underrated factor of this Ole Miss softball draw is no SEC teams in their side of the bracket. They won't see an SEC team, including Oklahoma, until the potentially national championship series. They're in the side of the bracket with Texas Tech, UCLA, and Oregon.
Yeah, and the NCAA is synonymous for putting SEC teams against each other in super regionals. I'm not saying they do that to keep it so it won't be the SEC Invitational in Oklahoma City. But, of course, you had Georgia and Florida in one region, super regional. You had Ole Miss and Arkansas in one super regional. So that limits the number of SEC teams in Oklahoma City. So just an incredible job by Jamie Tractual. And I can't say enough about Keith Carter, athletic director at Ole Miss. He's been spectacular leading this Ole Miss athletic program.
Okay, before we get out of here, are the Arkansas Razorbacks the most cursed team in the country at the moment?
Well, I think if you look at Arkansas's softball program for the last 4 years, 2 super regionals and 2 first-round regionals. And that's 4 regionals that they've not been able to get to punch their ticket for Omaha. So I think if you look at their softball program, maybe so. I don't know that I would put the curse into their football program. They're just not very good right now. Yeah. And baseball, yeah, maybe so. We'll see what happens this year. They've got a really good squad under Dave Van Horn. They should have had a national championship to their credit. So they've had some bad luck there. But all the other sports, they've just been beaten straight up. And you talk about Arkansas and Ole Miss, and it's just not a lot of a rivalry right now. And Ole Miss has really taken it to the Hogs, especially this past calendar year. They've done a really good job taking care of Arkansas.
It's probably a coincidence, but having Keith Carter as an athletic director taking down Arkansas, he's been the Arkansas killer his whole career as a player, and now he's just brought it over in the athletic director.
No, he's we had a chance to visit with him, and he's from Perryville, Arkansas, and wanted that Arkansas offer growing up from Nolan Richardson, if you'll remember, and didn't get it, but he got an offer from Rob Evans, and the rest is history.
Absolutely. Brad, tell everybody where they can get your stuff.
Yeah, well, as you know, Steven, there's been quite the influx and upheaval with the message board community. So right now, just hanging out over at the Logan Media Network with our 2 podcasts, with the Believe in Ole Miss podcast and, of course, the Red and Blue Crew podcast. I do that with my good friend David Johnson. Right now, David and I do our podcast. As for that, who knows, Steven?
Absolutely. Let all of them have all the drama that they want to have. I'm just going to sit over in the corner and watch. That's my philosophy on that. Anyway, Brad, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we'll talk to you later, buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the #1 Ole Miss podcast out there. Your support means a ton to us. For your second listen, check out The Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find The Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Hotty toddy, everybody. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.